They say words can heal and words can hurt. But rarely do we realize just how powerful a single word can be until it changes everything. This is the story of Daniel, an ordinary man from Ohio whose entire destiny was shaped, broken, and then rebuilt by just one wrong word. Daniel was the kind of person you might pass on the street and never think twice about. He was tall, quiet, and had a face that seemed to carry both kindness and exhaustion. He worked as a mechanic in a small town where everyone knew everyone, the kind of place where secrets didn't stay hidden for long. His life was steady, predictable, and for the most part, uneventful. But Daniel carried something inside him that no one saw. He carried a temper, not the kind that erupted often, but the kind that built up like a storm behind calm skies. Most of the time, he kept it hidden. Most of the time, he looked like a man in control. But one word, just one wrong word, was all it took for that storm to break loose. And on a night that would change everything, that's exactly what happened. It was late September, the air cooling, the leaves beginning to shift into shades of gold and fire. Daniel had just finished a long day at the garage. His hands smelled of grease. His shirt carried the weight of sweat and effort. And all he wanted was to go home, shower, and rest. But when he walked into his small house, he found his younger brother, Chris, sitting at the kitchen table with bills spread out like an endless battlefield. Chris was different from Daniel. He was a dreamer, always chasing ideas bigger than their reality. He had started a small business and online store that hadn't gone the way he expected. Debt had piled up, pressure mounted, and Daniel, being the older brother, had stepped in more times than he could count. "Dan," Chris said softly, his voice tired, "we need to talk." Daniel dropped his keys on the counter, already feeling his chest tighten. He knew that tone. He knew what was coming. Chris looked up with worried eyes. "I need more help. It's just a little more. I swear, once this next shipment sells, I can turn it around." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had heard this before too many times. His savings were nearly gone, his credit card bills climbing because of promises that never seemed to come true. He wanted to believe in Chris, but reality was suffocating him. And then, in that moment of frustration, Daniel made the mistake that would echo through his life. He snapped. He slammed his fist on the table and shouted one word: failure. The word shot through the room like a bullet. Chris froze. His eyes widened and his face drained of color. For a moment, silence held the air hostage. "You're a failure," Daniel repeated, his voice breaking. "Everything you touch falls apart, and I'm done cleaning up after you." Those words, sharp and heavy, fell like stones into Chris's heart. He pushed back his chair, his hands trembling. His lips quivered as if he wanted to speak, but no sound came. And then, without another word, he grabbed his jacket, walked out the door, and didn't come back that night. Daniel sat there, staring at the bills, at the empty chair, at the silence he had created. At first, he felt relief, as if finally he had spoken the truth. But by morning, that relief turned into something else. Something heavier. Because Chris didn't come home the next day. Or the day after. A week passed, then two. And Daniel's world began to unravel. The police found Chris's car abandoned near the river. His phone was inside. His wallet too. But Chris was gone. They searched the woods, the riverbanks, everywhere they could think of, but there was no trace of him. To the town, Chris had simply vanished. But to Daniel, the truth was unbearable. His brother hadn't just disappeared. He had run from the one person he trusted most. He had run from the word that cut him deeper than any blade could. Failure. And that word haunted Daniel. It echoed in his mind at night, clawed at his conscience during the day, and left him staring at the ceiling for hours, unable to breathe. He replayed that moment again and again, wishing he could go back, wishing he could swallow that word before it left his mouth. But he couldn't. And that was the turning point. Daniel began to change. He stopped talking to people, stopped laughing, stopped showing up at family gatherings. He worked more hours at the garage, not because he needed the money, but because he couldn't stand being alone with his thoughts. But the silence always followed him home. And in that silence, he found himself breaking. One night, months later, Daniel sat in his truck by the river, the same river where they had found Chris's car. He stared at the water, the reflection of the moon trembling across its surface. And for the first time, he whispered the truth aloud. It was my fault. One word ruined everything. Tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed began to fall. His hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel. For hours, he sat there, his heart heavy, his soul drowning in regret. And then, in that brokenness, something shifted. Daniel realized he had two choices. He could let that one wrong word destroy him completely, or he could use it to build something new. He could drown in guilt, or he could learn the hardest lesson life had ever handed him. From that night on, Daniel chose differently. He began speaking carefully, not just at work, but everywhere he went. When a young apprentice made a mistake at the garage, instead of shouting, Daniel encouraged him. When his neighbor's son struggled to fix his bike, Daniel knelt down, smiled, and said, "You've got this." When his mother worried about Chris, he held her hand and told her, "We'll keep hope alive." He became a man who chose his words as if they were precious stones, valuable, irreplaceable, capable of building or breaking lives. Years passed, but Chris never returned. The pain never disappeared, and the guilt never fully left Daniel's heart. But people began to notice something different about him. They noticed the way he listened, the way he spoke life into others, the way he made people feel seen, valued, and safe. Daniel became known not for his temper, but for his kindness. Not for the word that broke his brother, but for the words that built everyone else. One evening, after closing the garage, a young man came to see him. He was nervous, fidgeting with his hands. Daniel recognized him as Jake, the troubled teenager from down the street who often got into fights. Jake hesitated, then said softly, "I just wanted to thank you. You probably don't even remember, but last year when I messed up fixing my dad's car, you didn't yell at me. You told me, 'Don't worry, mistakes mean you're learning.' Nobody had ever said something like that to me before. I think you saved me that day." Daniel's throat tightened. He looked at Jake, and in that moment, he realized something profound. Maybe he couldn't take back the word he had said to Chris. Maybe he couldn't erase the pain or change the past. But he could make sure that from now on, his words would never again be weapons. They would be bridges. They would be light, a core. They would be healing. And so, Daniel lived with both a scar and a purpose. A scar that reminded him of the power of one wrong word, and a purpose that reminded him to choose better ones every single day. Because words are not just sounds, they are seeds. They take root in the hearts of others. Some grow into strength, courage, and hope. Others grow into wounds that never heal. And you, like Daniel, must choose which seeds you plant. So, dear listener, remember this. One wrong word can change a destiny, but so can one right word. A word of encouragement, of kindness, of love. It can lift a soul, heal a heart, and even save a life. Don't wait to learn this lesson the hard way. Don't wait until it's too late. Speak with care, speak with compassion, and let your words become the legacy that outlives you. Because in the end, it is not the cars we fix, the houses we build, or the money we earn that people remember most. It is the words we spoke to them when they needed it most. And that, my friend, is the truth Daniel carried with him until his last day. One wrong word changed his destiny. But one right word spoken at the right time has the power to change someone else's forever.